You are now synchronized to the sights and sounds of planet Leo. What's going on, everybody? Leo here, and today we're going to be playing some Double Dragon Neon, and we're also going to be talking about the future of Nintendo. What's wrong with Nintendo, or is there something wrong with Nintendo? They have their NX console in the works. That's no secret, but I have to admit, even though I am one of the most hardcore Nintendo fans and have been, and you can call me a Nintendo apologist, fanboy, whatever, for the past about 20 years, or 20 plus years I should say, I have been touting how great Nintendo is. However, recently things have not been going so well as far as my perception of Nintendo goes, and also this new NX console and what's been leaked seems to be somewhat of a controversy, at least in my mind. And from what I've read, not too many people are too happy with Nintendo at the moment. And we're gonna go ahead and delve into more of that chatter in this video. So thanks for joining me, and stay here. Alright, so Double Dragon Neon, and let's already started. Now, I've never played this game. I used to play the Double Dragon games for Nintendo, the original NES, and quite frankly, I never got really good at them as a kid playing. However, I really enjoyed many hours of playing those games. So we're gonna go ahead and see what this remake or remix or whatever you want to call it is like. Oof, we start off with a bad punch to that lady there, and of course the Double Dragons are gonna show up and beat everyone up.
Oh, man.
But okay, Nintendo NX, what's going on? You might be asking. Leo, Nintendo has just not done anything lately that appeals to the hardcore fans. What do you think? And so, okay, let's begin by presenting to you where I think Nintendo started to go wrong, and where I think Nintendo is trying to go, and where it might end up, at least in my view from what I've seen. And so I think that Nintendo, it's both an asset and an Achilles heel, that they have much control over a lot of the things that they do. And what do? Is they try to control, almost micromanage every single aspect of the way they handle their business. So what that has done to them in the past, it has allowed them to thrive. Back with the NES console, they've had the ability to revive, you could say, the console market. Everybody owes a great deal of gratitude to Nintendo for everything that they've done in terms of resurrecting the console market and allowing there to even be a market in the first place, because as many of the older generations already know, console gaming was all but dead in the mid to late 80s, and then Nintendo decided to go ahead and release their NES console here in the United States. There was a soft release in the New York area, and that was a success. So then they decided to go ahead and release countrywide here in the United States, and eventually I do believe it went almost worldwide, or if not, it did go worldwide with the Nintendo console. It went on to be a wonderful console, great console, pioneered in many ways, Nintendo had their seal of approval, and that was great. It was needed at the time because one of the failures of previous consoles to it was that they were releasing a lot of junk video games, and that almost destroyed the industry at the time. And that's why Atari had almost fallen off the map completely by then when it came to console gaming. And so Nintendo comes along. They decide we need to have some sort of method to go ahead and make things right and prevent this problem from happening again. So they did the right thing. They created the Nintendo seal of approval, the QA process, I guess you could say, quality assurance for video gaming, and to just pretty much check out the games before they're released on the console, and they had full control of deciding like, hey, this game needs to be fixed up. We're not going to release a piece of junk on our console, although that some of them didn't make it through. E.T., I'm looking at you. Well, Nintendo does this out of necessity, and it worked. It helped. It was great. It was wonderful. It helped the console survive in people's homes. And so we're gonna fast forward a little bit. A lot of things behind the scenes weren't going too well between Nintendo and the developers. Nintendo, once they had success, they knew that they had complete control over what was going to go into their console, and they knew that they were the only manufacturer that really had I guess you could say influence. They had, I think at one point, 85 to 90% market share in terms of home consoles, which is unheard of before and since then. It was just dominating. You know, it was almost a monopoly, you could say, that Nintendo had on home consoles. So they knew they could have full control. They know they could bully some of the developers, and behind the scenes, yes, they were both making money. However, Nintendo was sometimes even making a lot of them jump through hoops. Where am I getting my information? Well, there's lots of documentation available. One particular book, if you guys want to go ahead and read it, it's a great read. It's called Console Wars. That book talks all about the industry of consoles during the late 80s to late 90s. So it follows a lot of that, a lot of the console wars that occurred, and so it's a great read. But there are all other sources as well. That's just the main one that comes to mind right now. Yeah, Nintendo kind of bullied some developers around. So what started to happen? What started to kind of change things? Well, Sega came along. They went ahead and became the biggest competition for Nintendo, and they were a little bit friendlier to the developers. The developers now had a second option. One thing led to another, and then you have years down the road, you have Sony that comes into play. Sony was developing a console alongside Nintendo, or actually an add-on to the console, and Nintendo decided that they didn't want Sony to kind of barge in, I guess, on some of their profits. So Sony went ahead and said, you know what, Nintendo, we can do this on our own. We don't really need you. They went to Sega also, which is something that not too many people really talk about, but they went to Sega also, and Sega pretty much denied them as well. And so Sony decided to go ahead and go with their own bigwigs and say, hey, let's finance this, let's get it done. And they did, which was good for them, because they went on to become the biggest console sellers or players for a long time to come. And arguably they still are. well, actually, not arguably, they really are right now the biggest, having the biggest success in terms of home console sales. However, that's another story. So Nintendo or Sony, they went ahead and they did something that hadn't been really done before, where they went straight to the developers. They did their research and they found out, like, hey, what do you guys want? What's gonna be good for the industry? What do you want done? And Sony listened, and they went ahead and got tons of support from the third parties, and they were, before you knew it, the Sony PlayStation was just popping out tons and tons of games on a regular basis. They had lots of support, all the developers were into it, and so there's where you start seeing some of the first issues, I guess you could say, in Nintendo, where yes, they were successful with the NES. They were also successful with the SNES, even though they lost a lot of market share to Sega. But then Sony comes along, and Nintendo, almost a year later, releases the Nintendo 64, and it was supposed to be like the best console with the greatest graphics, with the most support. However, Nintendo decided, because they didn't want anybody else kind of cutting into their profits, they decided to go with the cartridge format instead of the CD format. Sony capitalized on this, and also the developers weren't too happy about it, because now they were having to deal with Nintendo taxing them for the cartridge format. They also were more limited with that format, and Nintendo continued to try and do their business practices that they had with their consoles, where they wanted to have full control. And so here's the big problem. This is what's going on right now. Nintendo has failed to adapt. Nintendo has not been able to be, I guess you could say, play nice with the third-party developers, and they're still going with they know that they have great first parties at Nintendo with great franchises such as Super Mario Brothers. They have The Legend of Zelda. They have new franchises like Splatoon. They have Pikmin. They have Donkey Kong. On and on. Keep going for a long time with their franchises. So lately they've been kind of just relying upon that for their consoles. I'm looking at the Nintendo GameCube, which was still a great console in my opinion. But what's ended up saving it was Resident Evil 4 for being a timed exclusive. Then we also have the Nintendo Wii. The Nintendo Wii tried their famous Blue Ocean strategy, where they weren't just gonna try to cater to the gamers only, but they were gonna try and get in your everyday casual person with the motion controls. And you know what? It worked. A lot of people bought into it. They bought the Nintendo Wii. It's one of the greatest selling consoles of all time, and you know, good for Nintendo. It was able to lure in the grandmas and the people that don't normally play these games. However, at the same time, they were still trying to continue their antiquated practices with the third parties and having full control, not letting up at all, having lots of taxing elements to developing their games. And so developers a lot of them felt spited, because here they are with options now. They have Sony, they have Microsoft, they have the PC platform, where they can just go ahead and release their games as they want to release their games, without all these taxes, I guess you can call them, onto their gaming consoles that they're developing for. So Nintendo starts losing or continues to lose a lot of support from their third parties, and that's been their Achilles heel for a while now. Now we're moving on now to the Wii U. The Wii U continues to try to innovate with this tablet controller that's really just another gimmick, kind of like the motion controllers. However, it's not the big success that Nintendo is hoping it to be. And so Nintendo releases an underpowered console. Pretty much you could think of the Nintendo Wii as another console that's just as powerful as the PS3, which had been out at release for almost 5 years, I do believe. So the only, I guess you could say, benefit of the Wii was the only benefit of the Wii was the first party games that Nintendo brings to the table. But the supposed innovation with the tablet controller, that's really something that never really was respected by the hardcore gamers. That really wasn't needed. At least a lot of the hardcore gamers and I share that same opinion. So Nintendo continues their attempts at having gimmicky aspects to sell to the crowd that's not hardcore gamers. However, this time, that crowd that they got with the Wii U is not there to support. The crowd that they got with the Wii is no longer buying it. They're not buying that tablet controller. They're not buying into it, I mean. And so the console doesn't sell well. The console is underpowered, so it's not like they could just say, oh, let's make current gen games on par with the Xbox One or the PS4, which is what should have been the competition. However, no, it didn't happen. It's underpowered. The developers can't even make, the third-party developers can't even make multi-platform games simultaneous for PS4, Xbox One, and the Wii U. Why? Because it's so underpowered. It would take a completely new development team to just work on an individual game for the Wii U, and to be honest, for a third-party developer, that's just not smart business. So, moving on to the Nintendo NX, and this is what you've all been waiting for. Leo, big long video, you've been at it for like quite a long time. You haven't gotten to talking about what the title of the video is really about, the NX and Nintendo and what they're doing wrong. Well, I've been setting up what Nintendo has been doing wrong for many years, and so far there's no letting up in their quest for complete control over what goes onto their consoles. So what makes you think that Nintendo all of a sudden is gonna let go and fully support the developers that are working on these games? Also, what makes you think that the NX is gonna have full power as it should? It shouldn't just be another PS4. If they release a console with slightly better graphics or equal graphics to, or I shouldn't just say graphics, but capabilities and horsepower to a PS4 or Xbox One, I'm gonna be very upset. Why? Because Microsoft and also Sony, with Sony it's been confirmed, they have already been working on the next thing. In Sony's case, they have the the PlayStation 4 Neo, I believe is what they're code naming it. Or a lot of people on the internet are calling it the PS4.5 or PS4K, which is gonna be quite an up in its power. So that's a good thing on Sony's side. They're kind of trying to extend the life of the PlayStation 4, and make the necessary arrangements they need to kind of stay afloat and competitive in the market. So we have them, we have Xbox doing their thing, and Nintendo just seems kind of like they're in their own little world. I almost hate to say it, Nintendo. You're almost a little bit delusional if you think that releasing another game with another tablet controller, as it's rumored, I mean, not another game, but another console with another tablet controller, and just rely upon your first-party franchises to keep you afloat. I don't think that's gonna happen. And don't get me wrong, ladies and gentlemen, I really like the consoles that Nintendo has released, but I do understand why they are so far behind. If the people at Nintendo keep making the decisions that they have been making for the past 10 years, there won't be a Nintendo console manufacturer in 10 years. Mark my words. Yes, they have lots of money that came in from their early years and that came in from the Nintendo Wii. However, it won't be smart business if they continue doing dumb business as they have been for the past year. The Wii U was not profitable, and so they have to adapt. They have to do something that's gonna help Nintendo reconnect again with the hardcore players, and it's gonna have to take something drastic, like letting the third-party developers have a little bit more freedom, something like stopping with the gimmicks, stopping with all these little things that a lot of people really didn't care about to begin with. Just make a good controller, make a capable system of handling these new possibilities, like streaming, streaming right out of the box, have it streamlined. A lot of these extra services, like apps, for example, that a lot of people like to use. Don't alienate it as being almost seemingly just a kid's console like they've always been. There's nothing wrong with Nintendo going back to their old days of like the Super Nintendo, for example, where they marketed games to everybody, not just kids. You know, they had a good thing going with the Super NES and with the Nintendo 64 even. They released first-party titles such as Conquer 64, or at least they weren't. Well, even if they weren't first-party, actually, they were exclusive, or like Resident Evil 4, that was a timed exclusive. So Nintendo needs to get back to their edgy ways, I guess you could say, and also with giving liberties to the developers. And also, they need to stop it with a lot of these little gimmicks. Gimmicks are very time-consuming. Gimmicks are, in many instances, kind of kills your momentum. You're kind of spinning your wheels there, showing something off that you don't even know. Actually, in Nintendo's case, they already know that the controller is not a big hit. Now, what I do like, however, is they do try to innovate. I'll give them that. However, when you innovate, don't do it at the cost of an underpowered console. I would love to see if they can pull off sort of like a, you know, as it's rumored, their controller with a touch screen interface that acts as a portable device that you can just take off with it and have in your pocket, almost like another cell phone, and continue using it through your day. And when you get home, you play it in its full glory with the rest of the console. But don't do it at the cost of the console's power. Let the console have full power, full capabilities. Don't get left behind because you're gonna have just another Wii U in your hands. And also, yes, first party is gonna be key. However, don't just rely solely on the first parties. Nintendo, I hope that you guys have a serious talk in your boardrooms with whoever is making these decisions. Yes, you want it to be a family-friendly console. However, you can do that and also have a little bit of something for everyone. You don't have to just get stuck by being a very niche market or having a very niche market. Something like the Blue Ocean strategy you applied to the Wii would also possibly benefit a future console, but also don't forget about who put you there, the hardcore gamers. Many of us have, in a way, you could say, I use it loosely, have kind of converted over to or migrated over to the other consoles, such as Microsoft's Xbox or Sony's PlayStation brand. So keep that in mind. Let me know. I'm really curious. Let me know what you think of the. Let me know what you think of the NX. What your thoughts are on where Nintendo's going. And hopefully what we might be seeing in the future from Nintendo. What are your thoughts? I really, really want to conversate with you as the fans, as the gamers, as a good community that has a strong opinion but's very respectful with each other at the same time. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to echo what you have to say to the whole world as well, through this platform that we call video, through the many output sources of video that we have now through the internet. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe to Planet Leo. And it has been my pleasure to go ahead and talk to you today about my thoughts on Nintendo, where it's been and where it might be headed into if it doesn't heed the warning, and the possibilities, the exciting possibilities of where Nintendo might go to if it just changes a few little things and decides to play nice with some of the developers. So thank you very much for joining me today, and until next time, folks.